Hi, hey out there. So, yeah, today no makeup, camera's just on the computer on my lap, uh, poor lighting, and it's actually somewhat intentional. Because today I am going to share my story, my experience with depression, and since I'm kind of bearing all, I want this to be as completely real, completely um, honest and truthful and bare as it can be. I know not a lot of people are watching these yet. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if someone does and it helps them, that's the goal. Now I know I'm working on a set to kind of help help you overcome depression and really, let me at least bring that forward to help at all. But really, how can I expect you to trust me and what I offer and say if you don't know where I'm coming from, if you don't know that I understand? Um, so, yeah, let's start at the beginning. Uh, this is really hard. I've recently, while delving into dealing with the depression and not just the basic symptoms, but trying to get closer and closer to the core, have come to realize that I was abused as a child. Because it happened when I was so young, I I thought it was normal. Um, I it was a caretaker, not my mom. She was a single mom, and a family member kept me. Um, I really, because I'm still processing it, I don't want to go too in depth. Um, but I do remember lots of threats. Uh, I was punished for the actions of someone else. I was punished for doing as I was told. I was, I may have been beaten, but I honestly don't remember. My memories of that kind of, like, I remember I was spanked as a child by my mom. But I remember every single time she hit me and was never out of anger. It was always, this is your punishment. Um, I remember every time she lost her temper with me and, where that ended. But with my caretaker, his family member, um, when she got angry and started yelling at me, my memory just stops. So I really don't know what happened afterwards. Again, I didn't tell anyone because I thought this was normal and I thought they knew, and I didn't realize it. Um, yeah, so that's kind of the beginning there. And when I say little, I'm talking, I don't know exactly when she started watching me, but I'm going to say at least as early, if not earlier than 4 years old. Um, yeah, I'm just going to leave that there. Excuse me one moment. After a while, um, my mom moved. My mom and I moved. We moved to another town. And she was getting a little better financially. She was a single mom, young single mom. She was getting a little better financially being in another town. And I stayed at a daycare run by a convent, Catholic convent. I loved it. Um, and then So things got better. Oh, and as I go through this, don't think that my entire life has been horrible. I'm just hitting the highlights here of the difficult parts because that's what is going to prove that I understand. It's not that there weren't good times. It's just these are the things that are going to prove my point. So we moved to another town, stayed there for a while, and my mom decided to kind of, I guess, partly for her just to get a fresh start, and partly to get me away from some of the family that weren't. I don't believe she fully knew about what my caretaker was doing, but she could tell something was wrong with the way she didn't like the way a lot of the family viewed me and treated me. The rest didn't flat out abuse me, but it still wasn't. It still wasn't necessarily pleasant. So we moved from Connecticut to Georgia. Big move. Yeah, big culture shock. And by the way, in Middle Georgia, I know a lot of people who are not from the area will not understand this. But Middle Georgia still holds on to the idea, they're still somewhat in the mindset of the Civil War, as in the South versus the North. The North are bad. They're Yankees. They don't want any association. There is a strong prejudice against not just the racial, not just the religious, which is all very true, but also about being from a union state. I'm being completely honest here. So moving into that wasn't too pleasant. I was new to the area. I was different. I started being bullied. When I was 10, I had my first clear memory of wanting to kill myself. I don't remember. I tried to figure out how. This was, days before internet and Google, if I actually had access to those, and I probably wouldn't be here today if I actually had access to a knowledge of a quick and not too messy way of killing myself. I probably would have. But at 10, I remember when my first memories of wanting to kill myself. Although not really connected. That's also when, no, sorry, that was 9. 9, I wanted to kill myself, or first wanted to. And towards the end of that year, actually, the next January, my mom met my dad. Calling my dad, he legally adopted me. And they got married. No, wait. They got married in August, so they met shortly after my birthday, shortly after I turned 10. And see, they got married, he moved in. We moved to another county because the county we were in, the schools were a bit scary. Not so much the elementary schools. The elementary schools were pretty good, but the middle schools were pretty scary. There have been violence. There's a lot of gang violence in that area. There have been girls raped in the schools, in the bathrooms, things like that. So we moved before I got, like I said, the elementary schools weren't that bad, but like the middle school and the high schools where it all started. So we moved to a different county before that happened. Um, I witnessed a lot of the first year marriage issues, which actually I'm glad I did because the whole idea of marriage as being the beginning as being this newlywed period. Yeah, when marriage is new, it's hard, and I saw that, and I saw them overcome that. Um, they never took it out on me, but I did, and they did actually, at points at least, try to hide it. Yeah, you can't hide that. Um, yeah, so moved to another county. I was 10, maybe 11 at this time. I saw a commercial for Zoloft, and I realized it was the commercial where they had this like bouncing rock thing. Uh, Anyway, it describes depression, and I realized that I had it. And I tried to tell my mom, but she couldn't process, an 11-year-old having depression. Depression was brand new. It was hard to process anyone actually having it, much less a child. Um, so after that, I worked very hard to hide it from everyone. Um, there were times where it was worse, and there were times when it was better, but I I learned to fake happiness. I learned how to like put on this mask. I learned how to hold back the tears until I could be in a place where I could shut the door and cry until my heart hurt. Literally, like angina, my heart literally hurting, like someone was squeezing it because I there was just so much emotional pain. Um, but I worked very hard not to let anyone see it. Um, so where are we? Middle school. And I was a good student. And my school did this really stupid thing where they took most of the trouble students and put them in one class, and then would take two or three of the um, star students and put them in that class because we were supposed to bring them all up. So you have all the trouble students in one class, and then you fill it in with the top of the class because the top of the class is supposed to bring up everyone else. Yeah, that's complete bullshit. It doesn't work that way. They made my life a living hell. Um, there's just no, you're sitting there and you're trying to learn and you're dealing with these disrespectful um, people who just don't care and will go out of their way to make you miserable. So that was my middle school and a good bit of my high school. I did get into honors classes in high school, which helped me get away from some of that difficult group. But then, you deal with the pricks who are in the honors classes who think they're everything and actually cheat their way through, and you're watching them. And I have a very strong sense of earning what I get. So, yes, I wanted A's, but I wanted to earn them myself. And if I ended up with B's, that was fine. Well, no, it wasn't fine, but I didn't want an A if I didn't earn it. Um, Again, I experienced, oh, in middle school was when I started, at one point, I wondered if I existed. which I know is really weird. Um, I just, because I was different, I was pretty much ignored by everyone. Um, so I got this like feeling of, am I even here? Am I even real? Are they interacting with me, or what is this? Actually, later on in high school, I read As I Lay Dying, and one of the characters experiences that, which made me feel a little less insane. I mean, most people don't experience that, I suppose, I've gathered, but, someone else has at some point. Um, yeah, then it was pretty much just, I would have good times where I could have fun. And then I actually have a 4-page poem that I wrote in high school about the feeling of depression and the whole. Um, you're just going along and you just find yourself slipping into this hole. It's just all, it's dark and wet, and the sides are mud, and you can't see out, but you know it's there, and you're gripping and trying, and you make some progress, and you just slide back down. And that was my daily life. Um, it's also when I started getting migraines. At one point, a physician, yes, puppy, stop. Stop, puppy. Yeah, you can't see it, but there's a puppy like licking around the edges here. There's her nose. Um, at one point, one of my physicians actually prescribed Zoloft for my migraines. Again, I hadn't told anyone about the depression at this point. Which actually did help the depression, although Zoloft was very new. It didn't really do much for the migraines, but it did help the depression. But it was very new, and my doctor lied to me, or was wrong at least, and told me it doesn't have any side effects. There are no withdrawal symptoms. Oh, shit. Again. Yeah, I never went back to her. After I first experienced withdrawal from forgetting to take it for a few days, I never went back to her. Um, trying to think of some key elements. I went to college, went away to school, went to a private school, private Baptist school, and they kept raising the tuition, so I got to where I couldn't afford to stay. Left. Then when I was 20, my grandmother died. I went to a physician and told her I was depressed. And actually, I'll have a whole section, I'll do a video on trying to explain how you're feeling to your doctor, especially when you're depressed and your mind's cloudy. I tried to explain to her how long I've experienced this, and she couldn't comprehend. But because my grandmother had recently died and had recently started again, she gave me some Balta, which worked great for about a little under a year. And then with no warning, it just stopped. And I went from feeling good to the deepest part of my depression that I had experienced within hours. And I was taking my medicine. It just stopped working. That was incredibly painful. I went from feeling good to waking up in the middle of the night, and I was actually my then boyfriend's house. I just stayed over. We would stay up late and talking. I ended up just staying at his place most of the time. waking up in the middle of the night, crawling out of bed, or walking out of bed, going into the closet, because I actually couldn't make it to the bathroom. It hurt so bad. I went around the corner to the closet and cried. And not just a regular crying. This is body racking, sobbing, working extremely hard to be quiet so as to not wake him, because I didn't want him to know what was going on. Heart hurting, everything just hurts, crying until so dehydrated I simply can't form tears anymore. At this point, I was working with Starbucks, which is a great company, by the way. After I realized that the Cymbalta wasn't working anymore, I weaned myself off of it. And I didn't go to the doctor again. I just weaned myself off of it. I had had a bad experience with her, and I never went back to her either. Worked really hard to get myself back up to a normal level where I could function. Got promoted, and I was promoted. There was a change of management, and the new manager didn't like me. I think partly because I was a bit of the previous manager's favorite, because I work hard and I don't ask for that much in return, but I give a lot of myself and I work really hard because I hold myself up to really high standards. And she appreciated that. But the new manager did everyone's going to play favorites to the point, but she played least favorites, I guess. She purposely scheduled me, and I found out one or two other people. She purposely scheduled us in ways that would make life hard. I was called in nearly every day. I was scheduled to be off. I often worked 14 days straight. I was the only one doing the work because I tested this, like things like rotating milk. You're supposed to pull the milk out, FIFO, first in, first out. So the oldest is constantly being used. And when you get a delivery, you rotate, you make sure that always with the oldest date is being pulled out first. Because if you don't do this, it's going to go bad. And when Starbucks goes through so much milk in a day, that's really important that this is done. Well, I decided to test it, and I didn't do it for a week. And by the end of the week, we were throwing out gallons and gallons and gallons of milk. Like a good 7 gallons in one day. Just had to go because it was all expired. But the thing is, when I didn't do the job, I always got reprimanded and in trouble, but no one else was. And this put me back into a rather strong depression. And actually, now that I think about it, it kind of reminds me of how I was treated when I was little. Being punished for someone else's actions and my actions, and them actually being rewarded for not behaving. So this sent me back into a depression, and I tried explaining it, and I tried explaining it, and I tried explaining it, and I was getting so physically ill. Like I wouldn't go to sleep at night because I knew that when I woke up, I had to go to work. So I quit. That's actually, well, the second time I just quit a job. But so yeah, I kind of dealt with things off and on. Got married my then boyfriend. Our first year together was pure hell. I was, dealing with depression, and he was dealing with, being married for the first time, and which is difficult enough as it is. I sunk pretty low, and one day I realized that part of it was me, and something had to change. And I'll go into details on these changes in individual videos. But realized something had to change. So, tried seeing a psychiatrist. That didn't go so well. I spoke with him for about 10 minutes, and he gave me 3 prescriptions, which he was unclear on the directions on one of them. Went back, spoke to him for 2 minutes. He gave me 3 more prescriptions. And that's just absurd. So instead of going back another time, I weaned myself off the prescriptions because I didn't like him. I didn't like just being given pills. I knew that wasn't the answer for me. Kind of worked really hard to pull myself up by my bootstraps, so to speak. Got back to a normal level for me. Like I said, I wasn't very often happy. I got back to a normal level. I was doing well. And then just one day, things started sliding, and I realized all of a sudden, I'm not cleaning. I'm working, but I don't like my job, and I got a new job. I liked my new job, but I had no motivation. Wasn't doing anything other than sitting at the computer. I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to do anything. And when I tried to do stuff, it felt like I was moving through mud. So I was talking to my mom, and she made me go see a doctor. So I did, and actually finally found a great doctor, which unfortunately I've now moved 2,500 miles away from him, so I'm going to have to try that again. But I'm in a better place right now. Hopefully it'll be easier this time. Found a new doctor. Talked to him about the depression. He did some blood work, make sure it's not a thyroid issue. And when he asked me how long I've been experiencing this, I tried to explain, and actually the only way I could explain it to him was telling him that my first memory of wanting to kill myself was when I was 10. He didn't bat an eye at it. He said, okay. And we talked for a bit, and he did give me a medication. I ended up taking 2 for a while, and they helped. They got me to where I could function. I still wasn't happy, but I could function. I could take care of my home. I could take care of my animals. I could socialize. I mean, wasn't necessarily loving socializing, but I could do it. So I kept doing that, kept my follow-ups. When we moved, I kind of didn't have a pharmacy at first, so I didn't have a place to refill my prescriptions.